Yo, what is happening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages? It is your hostess with the mostest. It is PKR, Pastor Keenan Riley, and we are here on People Suck, Love Them Anyways with a turkey hangover. We are coming fresh off of being off a week, like we need a week off. but let me tell you something, man. Whenever we get an opportunity to take a Wednesday night Baptist night off, we do it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, absolutely. Because we're preparing for a Thursday feast. Right, you know what I'm saying?
Loosen them belts.
Yeah, exactly. You got to unbutton them pants, loosen that belt, make sure your shirt is extra stretchy because you're about ready to gobble gobble and wobble wobble probably. Did you have a good Thanksgiving, sir?
Oh yeah, for the most part.
Yeah. Did you?
Yeah, minus the fist fight that broke out shortly.
Bro, I love it. I mean, and if he wants to talk about that, he can. But when he texted me and told me, he's like, "Man, my family got in a fist fight," I'm like, "That is amazing! Like that is pure Kentucky-esque type Thanksgiving. Like that lets you know that we don't play. You know what I'm saying? Like whenever you get together with your family on Thanksgiving and there's a fight that ensues, that's amazing.
Oh yeah, I mean it's like I always tell. It's funny like when me and my wife first got together and she was gonna come over for the first time. The same people who started a fight this time started a commotion that time.
Really?
But yeah, and I was like, I warned her ahead of time. I was like, I'm gonna tell you right now, my family's crazy.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, don't worry, my family's crazy too. I said, no, listen, my family's crazy.
Are they crazy, or is it just like extra testosterone and stuff?
No, they're just crazy.
Just crazy. Okay.
They're crazy, and and I was like, don't trust me, they're crazy. And then that night, she came home, told her mom, and she's like, yeah, your family's crazy. I was like, yeah,
right.
yeah, welcome.
Yeah, oh yeah, no.
Welcome to the party.
Yeah, I didn't have any like fights. I don't think. Like I don't think it was
it's
nothing
like a
crazy.
Ticking time bomb. That's what I usually always tell people. I said, I said it's like it's always like I'm trying to think. It's kind of like a bottle or like a cup of water. Like if just keep putting more water on top of it, eventually it'll like overflow.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, it said you never know when that last drop
is gonna hit. Yeah.
Yeah. But I was like, when it does, it makes a mess. It makes a mess.
Well, outside of the fist fights and people getting hit in pacemakers and everything else along the way, how was the food?
Good. I mean, food was amazing. Food was amazing. I had a little bit of a ear infection crap, so my appetite wasn't 100%, which kind of sucked.
Did you have turkey and ham?
Yes, I did.
Really? Yeah, I'm envious, bro. I'm jealous. I'm jealous. I'll be honest with you, man. Like my Thanksgiving this year, and like Thanksgiving is traditional turkey and ham, right? At least some people call it stuffing, I call it dressing. But
anyway, I'm out.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not.
I love dressing, man. But my parents have cooked like for the last. Me and my wife have been married for close to 15 years, and I know they've been cooking every Thanksgiving, since we've been married and stuff. But this year, man, it was like they done like more of like a traditional Sunday afternoon type meal. It was like roast carrots, potatoes, meatloaf, green beans, pinto beans, mashed potatoes, things like that, man. And the food was good, but it was just like it wasn't like traditional turkey food. It wasn't Turkey Day food. And that really sparked the conversation between me and my wife later on that evening, where it was like, hey, we need to not to go like real dark and be like, hey, our parents are getting older, blah blah blah, but they are, and it's like we need to start kind of setting some traditions for ourselves. It's like we need to start kind of looking around and thinking, because my kids, man, they're not young anymore. You still got young kids. I know Skylar just celebrated a birthday. She's what, 9? She's 9 now, and and I know Spencer is how old? 2. So
somewhere
ish. He's 2.5 ish. So you still got some kind of young kids. Mine's 11 and 14, man, and going fast. And so Lindy will turn 12 in January. So she turns 12 next month. And so it's like my kids are growing up fast, and I told my wife, I said, we need to start kind of setting in some traditions ourselves. Like maybe it's a Thanksgiving meal, or maybe it's like for Black Friday this year, we got up and cooked breakfast together, and and had gravy, biscuits, sausage, like butter and biscuits, like hash browns, and like all this good stuff, man. And we just,
I'm starving.
I know, right?
It
was thunder, man. It was thunder, and my wife, she's a great cook, but you know, like we just sat around, man, and just like we just ate breakfast and we just hung out, and like it was like 12, 1 o'clock, and we were just sitting on the couch, like just talking back and forth, you know. And I'm like, this should be a tradition that we do every year on Black Friday. Like, forget getting out there and getting in fist fights, you know, forget going to Nick's family and getting in fist fights, you know.
Hey,
like,
listen, we have more fist fights at Thanksgiving than Black Friday.
yeah,
shopping,
yeah,
okay?
right. It's like, forget that, man. But it's like, let's stay
the fist
in.
fights didn't happen until Black Friday evening.
There you go. There
Like,
you go.
you know, we
With
were
all
good
that
before
pent
that.
up aggression, you know.
Yeah, we were shopping and shopping.
But yeah, man, you know, it's just like we need to kind of set our own traditions in place and things like that, and kind of see what we can get worked out. And I think that's kind of cool. Like, you can still kind of be a part of what your family's doing, but like, you know, you with a family now, yourself, married, kids, all that good stuff. It's like, you know, at some point in time, man, you're gonna have to start setting away with what y'all are doing. You know, it's
I'll
like,
tell you right now, I'm definitely ready for some new traditions.
yeah, you ready?
after
Yeah,
this
you ready
year.
to start doing things on your own?
Yeah, ready for doing some different things. I mean, it was kind of sad. My sister started working as an EMT again, so she didn't really get to be with us this year. So I mean, it was kind of a smaller gathering
Yeah.
at my house for my like my parents and stuff. It was just my
Right.
parents and my brother and my wife and kids, and you know, it's usually her as well with her kids and husband, and so it was a little quieter that morning, which was a little sad. You know, I actually enjoyed it last year. But you know, I mean, she's out there doing much more important work,
Yeah,
taking
right.
care of people and saving their lives and things
But
like that.
don't you think it's crazy too, though? Like, I didn't go anywhere. I mean, besides like I made like a trip to the dollar store or like Family Dollar or something like that. But I didn't do the whole Black Friday thing. But it's crazy to me though how like people, we have some businesses, it seems like that for the first time in a long time they're honoring the holidays. But then you have those businesses like Dollar Store, they didn't shut down, bro. Like they worked from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m.
On
Thanksgiving, yeah, on Thanksgiving, on Black Friday, you know. And like,
I feel bad for those people.
I know, I do too, and that's my thing. Like, you know, it's like how. I mean, I'm not saying that again that shopping's not important. Like, people need stuff, man. I went in on Black Friday just to grab some of all things like styrofoam cups and something else, man. And you know, like in the dollar store close to my house, dude, there was not one styrofoam cup in that place.
Well, yeah,
bro.
it is Thanksgiving.
I know, yeah, exactly. And
they need the most.
yeah.
almost.
And whenever I was like, "Hey, do you have any styrofoam cups?" Like, they looked at me like I had three heads. They were like, "Are you kidding me right now?"
You're the freaking reason I have
Yeah,
to be
yeah,
here.
exactly.
Like,
What are
like,
you
go
doing?
home.
Yeah, what
Drink
are you
from
doing?
your hands.
Yeah,
Like, I ain't doing this.
yeah. Do that Bible story where they're just lapping it up, like they're on their hands and knees, just lapping it up, man.
Drink
but-
from the 2-liter bottle.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, it's crazy to see how some places though are just like they're wide open, man. Like, they're like, hey, like open to close. We don't care about your family. We don't care about family time.
More
it's
so
like,
that we don't care about our employees' families.
we're
more so than anything.
right. Yeah, it's like, you know, it's like we care about the bottom line, so we're going to keep it going. And so it just kind of shocked me, man, that some places were just up and going, like Thanksgiving Day. I've seen some places that close down like 5, 6 o'clock at night, things like. But I'll be honest with you, Nick. Like, if I'm getting off work at 6 p.m. on Thanksgiving night, I'm not going somewhere to frolic and have family time for 4 or 5 hours and eat and have a good time, bro. I'm tired. I'm going home. I'm ready, you know. So it's like, what do you think, man? Like, what could we do, or what needs to happen as far as like getting that? I mean, I feel like we're going in a direction of family, of tradition, of setting that tradition, of kind of honoring the day and things like that. It's like, what can we do to kind of get that back to where it needs to be at, where it's like it's about the family, it's about that core group of people that you care passionately about, and you're just going to spend time with them.
I mean, ultimately, it's, you know, we've been talking about this honestly for several weeks
Have
now.
we?
But no, I mean, what I'm about to say.
Oh,
But it's just kind of like, you know, we talk a lot when, you know, not, I hate to, you know, bring it up again, but like when Charlie Kirk died, we had a lot of people that were all saying,
yeah.
like, hey, we're going to
Yeah.
change things. We're going to do things different. We're going to,
right.
you know, we're going to really, you know, talk about what's important and care about what's important and
You
all
know,
that kind of stuff.
Before you go any further, you know who called that out to me the other day? It was my 11-year-old daughter. She said, "Dad," she said, "whenever Charlie Kirk got killed," she said, everybody was like, you know, Charlie, 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 you know, like all of this good stuff, and they were changing and having all these rallies and all this good stuff. And she said, Now what are people doing? You know,
Exactly.
and I'm like,
that's
I'm
what
like,
we've been talking about this podcast.
yeah,
every week for
and
the last
I'm
30
like, if an 11-year-old kid is noticing this, man, like, wake up, you know,
absolutely,
wake up.
You know, and I think along the same line as that, you know, it just comes down to we have to make a decision to shift our priorities.
Yeah,
They're not going to shift themselves. It's not going to shift because the world says they need to shift. It's not going to shift because a bunch of people say they're going to shift. Like, you have to make a decision on an individual level to shift your priorities, to change your priorities.
Right,
You
right,
know, to make that decision to say, like you did, you know, we're going to start some family traditions. You know, on Black
right.
Friday we're going to start having breakfast. You know, that it takes people on an individual level making that decision. And, you know, we talk about, I talk about this with a friend of mine all the time. You know, like, we need to see people stand up, we need to see people rise up. I said, people are too lazy. You know,
Right.
people are not. I said, you know, because it does. Yes, there's easy to talk. It's easy to make these big statements. It's easy to say we want to see this, say we want to do that. But until people on an individual level
Mhm.
find it within themselves to do something or to say something, then nothing is going to change.
Right.
And we, you know, we can want these things, but again, we can want in one hand and crap in the other. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it's not going to happen until we actually put some momentum into it, until we put
Right.
some purpose behind it. You know, until we say this is how things are going to go from now on. This is what we're going to do from now on.
Yeah.
You know, it takes saying I'm not going to work a job that's going to work me on Thanksgiving Day.
Right.
You know, it takes I'm not coming in on Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah.
I will work this job, and if they fire me, they fire me. I'm not coming in
Right.
on Thanksgiving Day.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it takes doing that kind of stuff, and you know, it seems dramatic, it seems crazy, but you know, again, we talk about this a lot. You know, God has given you your family to be a good steward of.
Right.
You know, and unless, you know, if you're not going to be a good steward of your family, then you're definitely not going to be a good steward of anything else.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's all about making sure that you're shifting those priorities. You know, like I said, I've had a little bit of anxiety lately because, like, the job that I took is much better for my family.
Mm-hmm.
But it pays a lot less.
Right.
And so, you know, there's that little bit of anxiety of, you know, how are we going to make ends meet? How are we going to make this work? You know, but again, it's all about trusting God that I have put my family first. I put,
Right.
you know, that schedule first, you know, over money, over, you know, things of that nature. And so it's all about trusting that God will take care of me like
Yeah.
he always has.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, there has to be a level of wisdom there. There has to be a level of, you know, good decision making there. But at the same point in time, you have to be able to say, you know, okay, this is what I want. I'm going to pursue it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is what my heart desires. I'm going to pursue it. I have
Right.
to put all this other stuff on a back burner. I have to put my reputation on a back burner. I have to put my career on a back burner if I have to take, you know, those seemingly drastic steps towards what I feel like I need to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to tell on myself just for a second, but like in Kentucky, I guess what was it, Monday morning or Tuesday morning that we had the weather? Was it Tuesday morning?
Well,
yeah,
Monday night, Tuesday morning.
Monday night, Tuesday morning. And so I woke up Tuesday morning, and my wife had already sent me a picture. She had already gotten up, and she sent me a picture of that they had canceled school, you know, and stuff like that. So I get up and I'm like, man, if they've canceled school, I didn't even look outside. First of all, I didn't look at the roads. I didn't look at anything. I got on Facebook because Facebook is the true news reporter
Absolutely.
of the road situation, you know. And I've seen as you went
God
more,
knows 4 million people.
Right.
How the roads?
I know. And people are posting pictures, and you know, and like it's literally you got one group of people who are like, the roads are horrible, stay off of them, it's the apocalypse. And then you got the other side of the aisle that's like, the roads are great, they're fine, just drive with caution, you'll be
75 miles
great.
per hour
Exactly. So you've got there's nobody in the middle, right? It's like left or right, it's either one way or another. So I didn't even look at the roads. But what I did do is I got up and I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I just made a decision. I'm like, my wife is here, my kids are out of school, and you know, I don't know what exactly the roads look like or anything else, but I'm like, I'm going to take some time this morning to enjoy my family being home. You know, I'm going to take some time. So, you know, I done the dishes, like I loaded the dishwasher, unloaded the dish, took the trash out, you know, just talked to my family while I was doing that stuff, just kind of interacted with them a little bit, you know, things like that, man, and just enjoyed the time that I had with them. And I come rolling into work about 11 o'clock, you know, and they're like, well, I'm glad you're safe. It's like, you know, was the roads bad down your way? And I'm like, I'll be honest with you, probably about 7 or 8 o'clock they were, but I was like, whenever I come in at 10:30, whenever I left the house, they were fine, you know. And it's like, well, what took you so long? And I was like, well, you want me to be real honest with you? I was like, I was at home spending time with my family because that's what was important to me. And I said, you know, if I wreck and die on the way to work because of the road conditions, what's that going to do for my family? Absolutely nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's going to do absolutely nothing whatsoever. I said, but if I take caution and I make the best decision possible for me and my family, I feel like it's going to work out okay, regardless of what happens. I feel like it's going to work out okay. And so, like, you know, for me, man, whenever I was thinking about that kind of stuff, I was like, people wear it like a badge of honor sometimes. It's like, oh, I made it into work today, and it's like, bro, if you die today, they gonna replace you tomorrow. Like what are you talking about? You made it in. What are you talking like? What is so important at that establishment that you wear it like a badge of honor to be there? It's like I never see anybody be like, I stayed at home with my family today and hung out with them. Like
it may cost me my job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I never see that badge of honor, like I never see that, but I always see that, like, oh, I made it here and I made it there, and it's like we carry it around like, oh man, I made it, like it's not that bad, like you wuss, and it's like you need to get out and do. And it's like, what about my family over? Well, they'll be here whenever you get. No, you don't know that, man. You don't know that. I had to do a funeral this week, man, Monday, and I was telling people, I said, if you want a sobering experience about life, go to a funeral, man, because funerals, you watch people, like, it's a culture shock of priorities, right? People are like, oh man, I got to go to work and I got to do this and I got to do that, and then somebody dies and it's like nothing else matters. Nothing else matters in that moment, but trying to get those last few moments with a body. I mean, at that point, like, the spirit's gone. Like, you're trying to get a last few moments with a body, and like, priorities change. It's like people aren't looking at their phones. People are hugging on each other. They're holding each other. They're crying with each other. They're feeling compassion. And it's a whole different ball game, man. And I hate it that, like, death is a reminder of how important life is. And it's like, I feel like we shouldn't have to experience that to get our priorities straight. But sadly, it takes like a culture shock like that sometimes for us to really get in line.
I mean, I think that's just anything. I think it takes something monumental to get anybody's attention. Again, going back, Charlie Kirk, something that was monumental, something that had a big impact. You think 9/11, something that was huge, had a big impact, here in America, I mean, there's things across the globe that people in these other countries listening that they can probably, think about, this happening in their country, and then everybody was kind of unified, or everybody was working together. It always takes something monumental. We're all very, and I tell people all this time, I get a little bit of flack for it, but human beings are naturally selfish. We are focused on us, ourselves. Altruism, doing things for selfless reasons, I don't believe actually exists. I think that we do a lot of good things because of how it makes us feel. So we're getting something out of it regardless. It is very, very difficult for human beings, to not be selfish. And so, we're focused on us, focused on our priorities, focused on what we want, what's best for us, what's best for our, and that can be a good and a bad thing.
Right.
Because, I think there are times you need to focus on you. You need to focus on your family. You need to focus on what's important to you.
Yeah.
And there's also times where you need to focus on other people. And especially as Christians, we're called to be selfless. We're called to put other people before ourselves and be good stewards of our flock and of our families, and, and the people around us, and care for them and love them and all that kind of stuff. And so people are naturally selfish, and it takes something monumental oftentimes to get us out of that selfish reality, that selfish mindset, for us to be kind of smacked in the face with that purpose that God put us on this planet for, which is to care for other people.
Yeah.
And it takes something monumental to kind of wake us up out of this haze that society has put us in, to say, hey, it's not about you.
Yeah.
Wake up. It's not about you. There's more important things going on around you than what you're focused on right now, and I talk about, there's a funeral that I went to. I hate funerals. I hate funerals. I hate them.
I get more nervous, man, as a pastor. I get more nervous at funerals than what I do at weddings. And it's just, it's like you have this responsibility to comfort the family. And I don't feel like I can ever say enough. I don't feel like I can ever do enough. I don't feel like I can ever.
You can't bring the person back.
Exactly. And so that's where I feel like so much pressure, and so much like I'm just nervous. Like, I want it, Lord, just give me the right words to say, the best words to say to give them peace and comfort,
Yeah. I mean, of course, me, like, this is going to sound great. But again, remember, my family's crazy. A lot of the funerals that I've ever been to just felt so volatile. People are
like fussing and fighting and stuff, really.
Because people are just always. They're at their worst emotional state. They're upset, they're angry, depressed, whatever. And any little thing, like I said, that little water droplets, could set off a cascade of craziness,
waves.
And I remember, my aunt's funeral though. Like, of course, my aunt had a lot of issues and problems and struggles in life. That choices that she made that weren't good, and they hurt a lot of people. You know, and there was a time when, you know, my family distanced ourselves a lot from this aunt, and
Mm.
you know, I remember being at that funeral, and I was very, very, very close to her kids, my cousins, and you know, we were very, very, very close. And she was almost like a second mom to me at times. You know, but I remember being at that funeral and you know, seeing her body, and one thing that hit me more than anything was you didn't try hard enough. And I think, yeah, it's one of those
Man.
things where I'm like, you know, you look at somebody and it's just like, you know, all this time you judge their decisions and
Mm.
judge the choices that they made, but you never once reached out. You never once tried to help. You never once prayed for them when you saw them in town. You ran away from them when you saw them in town.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a lot of those types of things that hit me. And you know, since then, you know, there's some people in my family that I know have had it rough and had it harder, and all I want to do is spend time with them.
Right.
You know, I want to love on them. I want to care for them. I want to listen to them. I want to make sure they know they're loved. You know, yeah, decisions they make may annoy the crap out of me sometimes.
Right.
You know, yeah, they may not make the wisest, smartest, and definitely not the godliest decisions, but
Yeah.
you know, I want them to know that somebody cares about them. Somebody loves them enough to hug on them, and you know, and you know, I'm not going to sit there and smack them with the gospel every 5 seconds, but I want them to feel loved. I want them to feel
Right.
cared about.
Yeah.
You know, and that's something that I got from a funeral. And again, I hate funerals. You know, I
Right.
hate them with a passion, but you know, it is a sobering reminder, oftentimes, of our failures, our mistakes, of the
Mhm.
things that we need to do better, things that we
Right.
need to get better at. You know, and you know, of course, there's a lot of other things that go on at funerals. You know, I mean, you know, people, hey, you know, life is short. You know, you got to get your life right. You
Right.
know, all that kind of stuff is, you know, the general vibe of a funeral too. You know, like, hey, if you know, we don't, and we are harsh critics of this too. You know, a lot of times with pastors who will get up at a funeral and say, you know, this person's flying high, they're up in heaven, you know, and that's
Right.
not always the case.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we as a society, as a Christian body, needs to get better at.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we can't just get up on an altar at a funeral and make people feel better by
Right.
saying that they're in heaven, flying
Right.
around, looking
Yeah.
down on us and smiling, because
Right.
that's just not true.
Right. And
You know,
that was my first question. Like, whenever this family asked me to do the funeral, I said, you know, was this guy a Christian? Like, I need to know that. You know, like I need to know, did he give his heart and life to Jesus? That's what I want to know. And they, you know, they told me, they said, yeah, absolutely, he did. You know, it's like he, you know, he was, you know, he was reading the Bible. He gave his heart and life to Jesus. He was doing missionary work, you know, things like that. He was like, you know, I mean, he was, you know, he was spreading the gospel. He wasn't afraid to talk about it, you know, and things like that. And it makes your job easier,
mhm.
you know what I'm saying? But like, even as a pastor in that situation, like, I'll just be dead honest. Like, if somebody looks at me and says, I don't think they work, I hate to say this, but my attention and my focus turns from, you know, doing a funeral about them. It becomes more about getting this message out to the crowd and being like, yo, look, like, today's the time and the moment that you really need to step back and take inventory of your life and see what's most important, because the most important thing is a relationship with Jesus. And it's like, you know, most people will be like, oh, well, you know, like what you said, like, you should be making people feel better, and you should be making people, you know, like really coddling people and hugging on people. And I think that's a part of it. But it's like, you also, like, I'm not going to stand up there behind a podium and tell a lie. I'm not going to paint this facade of you can live any way that you want to live and do anything that you want to do and still somehow make it into heaven. That's not the case, you know. And it's like, I tell you all the time, if you're going to make a mountain out of a molehill, be ready to die on that mountain. And that's a mountain that I will die on. Like, you can't just live, do, think, believe, like, just blah blah blah, do whatever you want to do in this world, and then, like, you know, one day just be like, hey, we're all, you know, flying around with little angel wings and hanging out and eating, you know, raising canes, I guess, I don't know, up in heaven. But
Oh,
you
that
know,
sounds amazing.
I'm ready to go right now.
I know.
But you know, it's like this. It doesn't work like that. So, but you know, to flip back to talk about funerals and like priorities and things like that, it's just, I think it really reminds me, Nick, that 99% of the stuff that we worry about is not important.
Mhm.
Like, it's really not important. And I said this Sunday from the stage. It's like, you can always get another car. You can always get another house. You can always get, you know, more clothes. You can always get
Another job.
whatever. Yeah, another
Mhm.
job. You can, like everything that you stress about, you can get another of. Like, truly. And but this, you get one opportunity at this life. You get one opportunity. And the crazy part is that each breath you take, not to go all morbid on you or anything, but each breath that you take is 1 second off of your life. That's crazy, but it's true. That's it. I guess 1 second I will never get back. That is one moment I will never get back in my life. And so it's like you have to really step back and think to yourself, like, what is important? What is important? And I think a couple of weeks ago we talked about family, we talked about things like that, man. And I've really been trying to do a better conscious job of trying to figure out like what is important in my life. Like what like I just said and told my wife the other night, I'm like, listen, I have put everything before my family. Like that is like I just bare my soul for a second. Like in ministry over the last 20 years of ministry, I've put everything before my family. I really have. I put the church, I've put ministry, I've put prayer, I put everything, conferences and visitations and like all this good stuff. Like I put everything before my family. And I said, nowhere in scripture do I find it like it's like where it's like at the end of the day, it's like, hey, just sacrifice your family and leave it over here. And you, my friend, like you just do you for the ministry. It's like, no, absolutely not. But I do find in scripture where a man and a woman's supposed to come together, be one flesh. I do find where this woman is supposed to be a helpmate to the man and the man's supposed to be a helpmate to a woman. Like I do find that in scripture. So it's like we prioritize things, man, a lot of times where it's like we feel like we're doing good, but in the end we figure out that it's like not really. It's like we were getting likes on Facebook, we were getting attention, we were getting good jobs and attaboys, while people were behind the scenes supporting but really suffering at the same time. And it took a lot for me to like just kind of step back and do some growth and do some reassessing in my life and be like, yo, look, like the most important thing is not sitting here in church on Sunday looking back at me. The most important thing is not at a conference somewhere or something like that. Like the most important thing that God has entrusted me with is my wife and my family. Like that's the most important thing. He's like, hey, can I give you this? Now, how are you going to steward? Because like you said, if I'm not stewarding my family well, I'm not stewarding anything else well. If I'm not making them a priority, then I'm not making God's plans a priority, or I'm not making God's purpose a priority, or anything like that. So it's like I have to step back and be like, yo, let me be a good dad. Let me be a good husband. And then after that, I bet I can be a good preacher. I bet I can be a good pastor. I bet I can be a good disciple. I bet, because like I'm showing that discipline and connectedness to something that God has entrusted me with. And I think, man, I think it's crazy because like I don't think we view relationships like that. Like God has entrusted me with that. Like, I would struggle with that sometimes. It's like, with kids and with marriage and stuff like that. It's like you don't see it as a God given thing. You see it as a choice you made.
And I think we do that with a lot of different things.
Yeah.
It's whether it's the job you have, the wife you have, the kids you have, the car you drive, the job you have. Like all of these, the money you have, the food on your table, we've got out of the Thanksgiving season. We're moving into Christmas, and we're talking about a lot of this type of stuff. But,
so we went from thankful to spoiled.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just ultimately though, I think we have to get better about thanking God. Thanking God's part of it, but I think we also have to honor God with it.
Right.
We have to honor God in the fact that I've been listening to a couple podcasts from Craig Rochelle, a couple services that he's been doing the last few weeks at church. And which is another thing I'm horrible at, is just listening to other people's sermons.
Right.
Not that you're bad, but it's just about the only external area of Christian stuff that I'm getting is from you sometimes. And so it's just about sometimes I've been listening to him, and he's been talking a lot about and this is going to be a bit touchy for people, but tithes and giving and being generous and generosity and all that kind of stuff. And he talks about how like God has given to us, and he's like one thing that he said, he's like, and I mean this in a lot of different areas, but he said that like tithing isn't like it's like you're giving 10% back. It's like if you don't tithe, then you're stealing from God.
Uh-huh.
He's wants to make sure it's very kind of important for you to think about that way. That
Right.
God has commanded that you give the best of the first to the storehouse, which would be the church.
Mhm.
Right. And it's all about making sure that you're giving the best back to God and honoring God with it.
Right.
And that's every part of your life though, your breath,
Yeah.
giving the best to God first,
Mhm.
giving it to God first before you give it to anybody else. When you wake up in the morning, thanking God with your breath, right? And thanking God with your spirit.
Yeah.
God gave you these things, and it's all about honoring God with those things first, and and giving Him the best of it. And so I think there's a lot of areas in our life where we are neglecting that God gave us this, that God blessed us with this opportunity. He entrusted us with this,
Right.
and it's our job and our responsibility to give our best to it. God gave it to us, and God wants us to give our best effort for what He's given
Right.
us.
Yeah.
And it's just like we talk about the parables and the things of that nature. It's like God, we can't be like that guy who just buried what God gave us, right? Just bury it and hide it, because we're scared of losing it. Where we, defend ourselves, we take the wrong job, we hide our spouse, hide our marriage, hide our job. We hide these things because we're afraid of losing these things. We can't be like that.
Right.
We have to be good stewards of it. We have to build it, and God has entrusted us with it. And not to get all hippie, but like the world. God has given us this world. God has given us the earth to take care of.
We are the world.
Right? I know, right? We're gonna get really hippie-ish.
We are the children. Sorry.
And just little peace signs.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, it's just like the earth. God has given us the earth. God has entrusted us with relationships, friendships. He's put people in our lives for us to be good stewards of, to be good representations of Christ to them.
Right.
God gave us that job so that He entrusted us with our coworkers. He entrusted us with the employee at McDonald's. Like He gave us the money, He gave us the ability to go to McDonald's to get food. He entrusted us with that relationship.
Do you know that McDonald's is handing out socks?
Yeah,
Happy
Grinch
Meals.
Grinch, adult Grinch.
Kids man. Yeah,
like
it makes me want to go get a Happy Meal.
I know. I've thought about it.
I saw the yellow
price
ones.
tag, and I'm like, never mind.
I know, right?
$13. Like
really,
like $13 or something like that for one meal. And
that's
I was like,
crazy.
I can go buy 6 pairs of socks for $13.
Yeah, 1,000%. I will not be getting those. So,
yeah.
but they were nice looking. I saw the yellow pair. But go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But I think just ultimately though, we have gotten we've just got nonchalant. There's a big word for it. We've gotten nonchalant with what God has entrusted us with. Whether it's our family, whether it's our job, whether it's the places that we go, the things that we do, the money that we spend. We've just gotten very lazy with it. We think we're entitled to it. We think that it's ours. We can do whatever we want with it. And that's just not the case. We have got to be better stewards of everything that God's entrusted us with.
Stewardship is work. That's the thing about it. Like stewardship is work. So it's like, I don't know if we become lazy or if it's just the fact that we just don't want to work, type situation. And however you want to look at it. All right. However you want to look at it, whether it's laziness, whether you don't work, whatever. I mean, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, like whether it's a relationship or whether it's at your job or whether it's like whatever, it's like it's nonchalant, a sense of entitlement, maybe, like whatever the case is. And like I can only speak, man, from what I go through and from what I've experienced and like things like that. And but like one thing, man, that I've really been like working on again is my relationship, my personal relationships and things like that. And like I was telling my wife the other night, I said, there was a part of me at one point in time that just expected you to give me everything without me giving you anything. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, and that was
normal for men.
That was such a sense of entitlement, though. You know what I mean? Like that was such a sense of entitlement where it was like, it's like I don't have to do anything, but yet you submit to me and do everything.
It's like Andrew Tate mentality.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you are made to serve, type situation. And I was like, that is so flawed. Like that was just a flawed mindset that I had, where it was like I don't have to invest anything, and then I get mad at you for not giving 100%. Like that makes no sense, right? And but we do that not just in our relationships. We do that, like I can remember being a younger person in a job and doing everything half-hearted and doing everything like not to the best of my ability, not with the excellence as if I were doing it for the Lord, things like that. And then I would get mad. I would get angry if somebody else got promoted, type situation. I would be like, man, must be nice, like whatever. And it's step back and be like, but how much did you invest? Like, did you show up early? Did you stay late? Did you not miss any days? Were you trying to get better at your craft and your skill or things like that? Like, what were you doing? Like, I think it's more of a sense of entitlement sometimes where it's just like, if I show up, and we've talked about this a lot with Christianity and stuff, it's like where if I show up, that's the standard. And it's like, no, that's the bare minimal. Like you should be showing up. You should be reading your Bible. You should be praying. You should be showing up to church. You should be serving. Like that's the bare minimal of what a Christian should be doing.
Worthy of applause.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, in a relationship, it's like, oh, I came home tonight. I could have been out running. It's like, no, you need to be home. That's the bare minimal, like, I mean, whatever scenario you want to throw in there, it's like, I feel like sometimes it's like we do the bare minimal and then we're like, like you said, we think we deserve the hand claps, we think that we deserve the attaboys and things like that, and it's like that's not being a good steward. That's literally just going back to the parable. There we go, of the talents, and it's like you're not doing anything to multiply. You're not doing anything to grow. You're not doing anything to be better. You're literally sitting on what God gave you, and then you bring it back and expect a hand clap and expect an attaboy, and it's not there, and you're not going to get that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I like the example you're given with like the job situation, because it's like, God gave you that job, which means that God knew you had the skills, talents, tools, and abilities to do that job, and not just do that job, but do that job well. I think back to like Joseph, and Daniel and the lions. Everywhere they went, they had God's favor over their lives because they pursued God in everything that they did. They worked hard at everything they did. They were in captivity, and they still worked hard at everything that they did.
Right.
And we've got to start having that kind of mindset. You may hate the job you're at, but God gave you the skills, talents, tools, and abilities to be successful in that job. But you're sitting around, twiddling your thumbs all day because you hate the job. And I'm getting guilty of this. I know you've been guilty of this. And so it's something that we've got to get better at, is realizing again that God entrusted us with that job, and we have to be better. We have to be better stewards of that job. We have to go above and beyond, even if we don't get that raise, or even if we don't get that hand clap or the acknowledgement, or maybe if we get a pizza party instead of a raise, or all those sorts of things. We have to be willing to step in. Nobody likes to hear that. It's like you tell somebody that and they're like, screw this place, screw the people in charge, all that kind of stuff. But nobody wants to hear that. But again, we have to remember that being a child of God, being a Christian, means sacrificing things, sacrificing your comfort, sacrificing what you want, putting your tail between your legs and doing things you don't really want to do. Keeping your nose to the ground and continuing to plow, continuing to move, continuing to gathering up grain behind people like Ruth. Like it requires us to put in a little extra effort than we want to sometimes, or than we feel like sometimes. But again, we have to have bigger faith than our feelings.
Well, I think too, it's like I keep on hearing in my mind, like it goes back to being happy during the hard seasons, like being happy, being content in the hard seasons. And we give Paul a lot of flack because it's like, man, it's like he was setting a standard of Christianity that was, like unreachable almost. Like he's setting some Jesus standards almost, but it's like we quote one of the most prolific verses in all of the Bible, Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. But it's like you got to go back and read before that. How can he do all of that? We've talked about this a lot, but it's like go back and read the few verses before that where he says, I've learned how to be content in every season. I've learned. So if you can learn how to be content, if you can learn how to be happy in the hard seasons, don't give up. Don't throw in the towel. Don't turn inward, which is what a lot of us do. I have been so guilty of that, where it's like if something gets hard, it's like I'm just going to shut down. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to address it. I'm not going to move through it. I'm just going to shut down, and hopefully it passes by. And then it's like, but there's no growing in faith. There's no exercising your faith. There's no facing the storm. There's no trusting God. It's literally like I'm just gonna roll up like a little hard shell bug, like a roly poly. It's like I'm just gonna roll. Yeah. It's like I'm just gonna roll up and just like hope for the best. But just because you roll up like you think you're protected, but I want to say this, like you may be protected from what's coming at you, but here's the deal. If something weighs more than what you do, then the force is going to crush you regardless of how much you're protected.
Armadillos still get road rage.
Exactly, man.
Run over on the road.
There we go. Yeah. I thought you was going to say they get road rage or something, and they probably do. But that's the thing about it, where it's like I want us to understand that a lot of times it's not the strength of the wind, it's the weight of the storm that's going to cause your ship to sink if you just literally sit in the middle of it. And so you have to learn how to be content and to keep moving forward, like regardless of what happens. It's you have to be content when you wake up in the mornings. Like I like whatever, like you might be like, Keenan, are you like on some kind of like psychedelic stuff, or like what's happening right now? But it's like whenever you wake up in the morning, man, like you wake up in the morning, Nick, and I'm in a house, number one. Okay. I've got electricity. I've got heat, unlike this room right now.
I know.
Yeah, right. Like
I've
I've got running water. I'm in a bed. I have my wife beside of me. My dogs are there. My kids are there. Like not in the bed with us, but you know what I'm saying. Like they're in the house. You know, I've got food in the cabinets. I've got like all of this good stuff, right? So it's like I might wake up and be like, oh, I'm negative $200 in the bank. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Look around at what you have, right? You know, man, I tell you what, I don't really want to go to work today. Doesn't matter because you know what? You've got a job where some people are struggling to find a job right now. Man, I don't want to go do this after work today. It doesn't matter because maybe that's what God has called you to in that moment. And it's like once if you start looking and funneling things through this gratitude that we talk about, this thankfulness that we talk about, when you start like bottling things up like that and then kind of like seeing them through that funnel, man, it's like you're thankful to be in the moment. You know, like you're thankful to be in the moment. And that's where like I've really come to an extent in my life, in my relationship with Jesus, in my relationship with my wife and kids, with my friend, like stuff like that. Like I just want to be in the moment. I just want to be in that moment. It's a true statement. I left Thanksgiving early from our home or from my parents' house, but I left Thanksgiving early, man, because I looked around the room and everybody was on a phone except for like me, my wife, and my dad. You know what I'm saying? And like everybody was just like scrolling through, doing their thing, whatever. And I'm like, I can do this at home. You know what I'm saying? Like be in the moment, be present, be there, be in that because you don't know, man. Like you don't know the next moment. You don't know the next opportunity. Like you don't know when you're going to get that opportunity. Like you have to be present in every situation. And watch, if you're present, I truly feel like you can be content if you're present. But you know, I was listening to a guy the other day talk about how like you know it's like a lot of times people will gravitate towards their phones so they don't have to really address any situations in their lives. It's like they're doom scrolling and they act like they're consuming something, but really they're not. They're scrolling through the gram, through Facebook, through TikTok. Just yeah, exactly. Like they're disconnecting themselves from the situation. And it's like, man, it's like be present in the moment with everybody that is around you. Like let's talk, let's conversate, let's talk, let's go deep in something. Like I don't care to have a discussion over whatever. But we just it's like I don't think that we're content anymore because we can't look around. No. We can't be present.
And I mean, I think I talked about this a week or two ago in our last podcast or whatever it was.
We talk about a lot.
Yeah, we do. We repeat ourselves a lot. But, I mean, people don't get it, so we got. We don't get it. So
right there, you go.
You know, and it's funny that you're talking about all that because you know I've one of the biggest things that I've struggled with right now is just the ability to find contentment and peace and happiness in every season and every situation, no matter what I'm doing, driving, working, whatever, you know, all that stuff. You know, and I actually had a comment, not to put his business out there, but I had a conversation with my brother last night. You know, one of the biggest things, you know, y'all pray for him. One of the biggest things he struggles with is finding you know, a partner, you know, someone that, you know, will be all in for him. Like
he's like all in 17, bro.
He's 21. He's up there, 21. But, you know, it is, you know, it is odd. I mean, but it is, you know, ultimately it is something that really is really weighing hard on him right now. You know, it's something that's really weighing hard on him right now. And he's had not had a lot of luck with it. And, you know, he's always asking, you know, when do you think it's going to be? What do you think God's trying to do? When do you think it's going to happen? And you know, last night I think I was on the phone with him, and you know, again, I'm working through some of this myself as far as being content and peaceful. And you know, I told him, I said, you know, one thing that the Bible always talks about and tells us is to not worry about tomorrow.
Right.
And I said, one thing that I'm hearing you say over and over and over again is, when is God going to do this?
Right.
When is God going to give me this? When is God going to do this? And I said, maybe the reason that none of these relationships are lasting past a month is because God is trying to teach you to be happy right now. You know, God's trying to teach you how to be happy and content in every season and in every moment, regardless of who you're with or if you have somebody. I said, you have to have faith that God will provide, but you have to be thankful and joyful in the moment, in the present. You know, you have to be present in the moment and be thankful for what God's already done for you, what God's already given you, what God's already blessed you with.
Right.
And I said, once you learn how to do that, I said, maybe, you know, God knows when you're going to meet somebody. God knows when you're going to have that blessing. You know, God knows that. And, you know, you may not know that, but he knows that. He sees that right here, right now. He sees it.
Right.
And he said he's trying to have, you know, he wants you to have the faith to see it as well, but have the peace to be content without it right now.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, that's something that's hard.
Do you feel like you're preaching to yourself?
Absolutely. You know, I was having a conversation with myself and him on the phone at the same time.
But don't you feel like, I tell people all the time, like, I never preach a sermon. Like I said, like every Sunday, no matter what I'm talking about, every Sunday that I preach is literally, I'm preaching to myself. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm preaching to myself as well. So it's like it's not only something that the church needs to hear, but it's something I'm ministering to myself about as well.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
absolutely. And I mean, and that's just, like I said, I'll just, rounding back up again, just say that, it is, and I told him this, I said, it's not easy.
Right.
It's not easy. So this world is designed for us to want more, to want it now, to want it as quick as possible, to get it to me right here, right now. I mean, we got DoorDash, Instacart, everything, right?
Yeah.
We have all
super
this expensive,
stuff,
very expensive, very expensive. But hey, when you want something soon, it costs something, right? That right there is a sermon.
That's a sermon.
Right
yeah,
there,
that's a sermon, man.
I was like, I told him, I said, God could have given you a relationship with any of these people that you've been with for a short period of time. I said, but it may have cost you something.
Right.
It may not have been exactly what you wanted or what God wanted for you. And so it's just a matter of making sure that we, and again, like I said, it's not easy. God knows it's not easy. I'm dealing with it, struggling with it right myself. But it's not easy. But it is part of the process. It's part of learning. About how to be a better version of yourself, about doing God's will, being in God's will, staying and being present and peaceful in God's will.
Right.
It's all about trusting Him and having faith in Him. The Bible says not to worry about tomorrow. Every day is like a mist, a vapor. It's gone. And so it's all about being thankful for what you have right now. It's being present in the moment, being present with the people in your life right now that want to spend time with you, that want to do things with you. That do care about you. It's all about enjoying each and every day and not worrying about tomorrow, having faith that there's going to be a tomorrow, having faith that God's working in your tomorrow, but having enough joy and peace to be thankful for what you're doing right now, for what you're going through right now, and enjoying what's around you right now. And that's something that I've struggled with a lot, and that's something I know he's struggling with right now, and I'm sure other people listening and watching are struggling with right now. And I can't say it's going to be easy. I can't say we'll be praying for you. I know, like I said, it's just a matter of trusting God with the future and being happy and joyful in the present.
Yeah, I think that's really what it boils down to, man, is that, you have to understand that, the Bible says that one day you will understand. Like you'll understand why things had to happen, why stuff is the way it is, or like why everyday life sometimes is the way it is. Like, God, we've always said this here, like God is playing chess while we're trying to play checkers. And he's already moving stuff around 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month in advance from what you're actually going to experience. And then once you get there, you're like, oh, okay. Thank you, Lord. Pray, appreciate that, man. But you have to get to that point. You have to get to that point, man. So to kind of
teaching you something.
Yeah, I was going to say to kind of like wrangle it all in. I feel like every week we're all over the place. We are, but man, we cover a wide variety of topics. But to wrangle it all in.
ADHD.
I probably do. Man, probably do. But to bring it all in, just to kind of close it out, man. It's like at the end of the day, you have to focus on what's important. You have to be a good steward of that, and you have to actually use it. You have to actually do it, man. And once you do that, I feel like that the possibilities will open up, and they can be limitless. They can be endless with whatever you're trying to pursue and whatever you're trying to do. But you have to be good at it. You have to be a good steward of it, and you have to be able to use it, and you have to be able to want it and have passion and desire with it, and things like that. So we love you so much, man. We first off, we appreciate everybody. Nick even texted me the other day, and he's like, we kind of been getting like some good downloads, even though we haven't been releasing releasing episodes and stuff like that. So we're thankful, man, that people listen. We're thankful that people hit the download button. We're thankful that people support, and so continue to do that. Tell people about People Suck, Love Them Anyways, and until we see you again, we love you so much, and be blessed.